All right. Thanks for everyone joining. So for those of you who may not be familiar, the NPDA exists to support franchised and independent powersports dealers through education, advocacy, programs, and practical resources, all focused on helping dealers build a stronger, more professional, and more profitable industry. The Partner Webinar Series gives dealers direct access to the company's tools and people helping shape the powersports retail landscape. Throughout the spring and summer, we'll feature NPDA partners on an almost weekly basis with one goal in mind: keeping dealers informed, connected, and exposed to ideas they can actually put to work. Today's webinar focuses on identity verification and fraud protection. As digital retailing, remote transactions, and faster buying experiences continue to reshape the sales process, dealers are facing a growing identity gap between who a customer claims to be and who they actually are. Synthetic identities, altered credit profiles, income fabrication, credit washing, and AI-generated document forgeries are creating real risk for dealers, lenders, and consumers. We're joined today by Jim Lawyer from 700 Credit to walk through how fraud slips into dealership workflows, where traditional verification methods fall short, and what dealers can do to immediately reduce risk without slowing down legitimate buyers. Please drop your questions in the comments or Q&A, and we'll work them in as we go, or we will answer all of the rest of those at the end of this presentation. This webinar is being recorded, and the recording and presentation will be made available within a couple of days after we complete this. With that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Lawyer. All you, sir.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you all. Can't run through the list of everybody to thank on the call. There's too many of you, but just know I really appreciate your time, and thanks for joining. Let me just give my typical disclaimers, if you will, in the beginning. Mark already covered one. If you've got a question, drop it in the chat. If you've got a question that absolutely is driving you crazy and you need an answer right now, more than happy to answer in the middle of the presentation. We have left plenty of time at the end to run through questions there as well. This presentation typically generates a lot of questions, so we're here and prepared to do that. Couple other things. This is designed to be an educational webinar. Yes, I work for 700 Credit, but there is no sales pitch here. Zero sales pitch. Do we have solutions that can help you detect fraudsters? Absolutely, we do. Some of you are customers. You probably already know that. This is all about learning today. My goal not only is to inform, but most importantly, I would love to be able to impart practical information to you that you can deploy in your dealership today, tomorrow, Monday, whatever works best for you. All right. Also, my presentation is not loaded with a bunch of stats. I learned a long time ago as a dealer myself, 50% of all stats are made up. You just don't know which 50%. So we don't use them. They're meaningless. I want actionable items. So that being said, the goal of this presentation, as Mark talked about, we want to talk about identity and synthetic fraud and the impact that it is having on, frankly, all the transportation, automotive, RV, boats, power sports industry. I was a dealer myself many years ago. I was not a power sports dealer. I thought I was going to get my street cred with Mark a few moments ago, and I told him I purchased 17 motorcycles in my career, and he called me an amateur. So apparently I need to up my game in this space. Why should you care about this? Well, the short is this is not only a $10 billion issue, meaning $10 billion were lost in fraud last year alone in the automotive, power sports, marine space. As I said, this is not an if, it is definitely a when. I don't encourage it, but there's my disclaimers. I usually give this presentation on stage. It's a little hard to be interactive with some folks, so many of my questions will be rhetorical, but I think you'll understand them. As Mark mentioned, my name is Jim Lawyer. Yes, my last name's Lawyer. Some people call me the trifecta of trust. I was a car dealer for many years. I was born in upstate New York. Of course, my last name's a Lawyer, so there's probably 3 reasons why you shouldn't trust me. I am responsible for our partnerships and strategic partnerships at 700 Credit, but I am really the in-house fraud geek, and that's what I really wanted to chat with you about today. So I will start with a question. This is a rhetorical, but I think it paints and illustrates what we need to know. So when a customer comes into your dealership, walks on the lot, they don't bring the family, they don't bring the kids, right? It's just a customer looking to buy a new motorcycle. How many people do you see standing in front of you? Now, of course, most of you would say one. And the reality is most times it would be. Unfortunately, in the day that we are today, fraud in the sales process, that answer may not exactly be correct. And simply because the person that you can physically see, of course, is standing in front of you. But then there's the identity that the fraudster wants you to believe that's standing in front of you. And it's that space that is between who they say they are and who they really are is what I like to call the identity gap. And as I've mentioned, and I will continue to mention, unfortunately, this gap has become very expensive for many dealers. So we all accept driver's licenses. Typically, I would ask the audience right now, why do you trust it? So I'm going to ask you as I continue to think in your minds, why do you place so much trust in this document? Is it because the photo on the document looks like the person who's presenting it to you? Maybe. Is it because you see that official name, the state of Arizona, and you see those watermarks and all sorts of other things that make it look real, right? Or do you put so much trust in this, frankly, because this is what we've always done, right? When customer comes in, we need to verify their identity for many different reasons, and we ask for their driver's license. Or is it simply that we put so much trust in this, and moreover, the fraudsters know that we put so much trust in this, is that we just readily accept it, they readily hand it over to us to keep that process rolling. And so I ask you, if you take anything away from this presentation, I'm going to ask you to think about this. The best fraudsters out there understand something that most dealers, you on the phone, me included, underestimate. And that is simply this. The danger is not the fraud that looks fake. It's the fraud that looks legitimate. And I have to tell you, this week when I was putting this presentation together, I went online and I found this short YouTube video. And I'm stepping out of context here for a second, but I think it's incredibly relevant to what's going on. And I saw this documentary, and it was on a company that produces the documents seen in all the police shows, right? They wave their FBI badges, or they wave their, documents that show, they're this, that, whatever. And fake passports and driver's license. And what the person said was, it's not important that the document looks accurate. What's important is the document looks convincing. And I hope that sets in, because that is really what's going on today with fraudsters. Fraudsters know that it just needs to look convincing. And in many ways, I call fraudsters magicians. They are masters at misdirection. And we fall for this because they want us to focus on the driver's license that they're handing to you. They want you to focus on the paperwork, the credit profile. My point is, they want you, and they work very hard to make sure you feel comfortable. And of course, while you're looking at what appears to be legitimate, they are, of course, hiding what matters most. And again, I need to reinforce this. It's not about being accurate. It's about looking convincing. So let me just share with you a real-time story, a brief story that puts all of this in context. True story. Unfortunately, we know this dealer. A woman goes into a high-end Beverly Hills dealership, Mercedes-Benz, and not surprising, because Mercedes is almost the highest on the list of fraud. I know this is a Powersports call, but it's relevant. because these are highly desirable in Africa. This vehicle literally goes for almost 3 times the money, $150,000 G-Wagon. So this woman walks into the dealership. She looks polished. She looks confident. She looks very credible. Nothing about this person raises any concerns. There's no red flags. She presents her driver's license. Her credit profile looks impeccable, exceptional. It's an 820 credit score. Her employment checks out. And of course, no surprise, within a few hours, this deal was approved. Deal's done. Customers over the curb burning gas. Now, 3 months later, the dealer gets a phone call from the bank. And I'm sure everybody on the phone knows right now what that dealer, the lender was saying. This customer never made a first payment, never made a second or third. Tried to call her, phone number's disconnected. Payment stop, G-Wagon can't be found. Probably doing a safari in Africa, as I mentioned before. An investigation on this revealed that she was actually a synthetic ghost. Her identity for her driver's license was stitched together, social security number, fraudulent, employment was fake, and most importantly, her credit profile was carefully curated to look legit. At 820, the customer looked real, the documents looked real, the deal looked real, but unfortunately, the identity was not. And of course, by the time they uncovered all this, again, the vehicle's gone, and the dealership, unfortunately, was left holding a bag for a $150,000 vehicle. I just read 2 minutes before I took this call, a survey that Point Predictive put out, and they discovered that 60% of all lenders now, 60% of all lenders, your lenders, are now requiring dealers to do deep dives into fraud, and if they can't prove that they did a deep dive to verify someone's identity, there's going to be a chargeback. Chargeback clause in your indirect lending, 60%. So, again, what I want to chat with you about today, of course, is the challenge of this type of fraud in our industry. How's it happening at dealers across the country? Of course, what we can do to make sure this doesn't happen at your store. And at the end, I'm going to give you 6 or 7 techniques, if you will, things that you should do at your dealership. So let me ask you a question and ask yourself this, yeah? How many of you take a driver's license at some point in the process? Usually when I ask this in person, almost 99% of the room raises their hand. Most of them tell me they take it for registration purposes. Some of them tell me that the lenders want it. But oddly enough, many of them actually tell me they do it to verify someone's identity. And of course, I'm kind of puzzled by that, because how does a photocopy machine verify someone's identity? And of course, everybody says, no. I mean, if they drive off, this is my method to go get them. Well, again, there's no identity verification in a copy machine. It's not going to help you. And then they always ask them what else they do to verify the identity of the person. And most, unfortunately, and if you're in this category yourself, it's okay to admit it to yourself. I won't call you out publicly. All right. But many say, this is all I do to verify someone's identity. I take their driver's license. The challenge, of course, can be what happens if that is a AI generated driver's license, or a fraudulent one, or a stolen one. So I want to dive into that. I want to ask everybody to think about, why is it that you put so much trust into this document? Why is it that we bet the farm on this? We bet our store, we bet our reputation on this. And what we found by talking to so many dealers is simply this. Most of us, besides the fact that this is what we've always done, most of us fall for what they call the law of authority. And the law of authority basically tells us that, hey, we see this document and it's embossed right across the top with the state's name and state's logo. Oh, we trust the state of New York, don't we? I hope there's nobody from New York on the call. I'm from New York, all right? And we see the watermarks. and we see everything that makes it look official. Ergo, then we trust that authority, in that case, the state. The question becomes, though, is what happens when that's a fake driver's license? Now, I won't embarrass anybody on this call, but I want you to again ask yourself, how many of you on this call think that you can verify that document? You can look at a driver's license and tell with confidence that you know it's a real or a fake one. And if you're saying yes, I know what your job was in the 70s. You were a bouncer at a discotheque. Because other than that, you were probably not qualified to verify. And I can tell you, I typically hand out fake driver's licenses and ask people in the audience, and 99% of the time, they get it wrong. So let me ask you this. Ask yourself, if a customer comes into your dealership and says, hey, you know what? Instead of giving you my driver's license to verify my identity, what if I give you my thumbprint or my fingerprint? I mean, they walk into your store, you take out the ink pad, and some of you may not know what an ink pad is, but they take out the ink pad, they put their thumb down on, and they put it right there on the piece of paper, and now you've got their fingerprint. Is that a better source of proving someone's identity? Is that better than a driver's license? Most of you may be saying right about now, we're missing something. And the reality is we are missing something. We're missing the ability to cross-reference that fingerprint with a trusted database, such as the FBI database, right? Mark won't admit it, but Mark's in the FBI database. We'll cover that at the end. There'll be questions available for that. But seriously, you need to be able to compare that fingerprint to a trusted database, such as the FBI database. Now, of course, you need to see the person take that fingerprint and do it live and in person, do you not? You all should be shaking your head, yes. Why? Because if they don't do it in front of you, they could just walk in and hand you their thumbprint and say, hey, this is me. Which is exactly what each and every one of us do every single day when we simply accept the driver's license. We're not cross-referencing that driver's license with any trusted data source. We're immediately walking over to the photocopy machine and taking a photocopy of it. Now, this joke usually plays better in person, but if there's any athletes on the phone, you all probably had to do the P-test, right? Go into the bathroom, give them a sample, because you're not going to run this race, you're not going to run this marathon doing drugs, right? And always in the room, there's the doctor. Why? Because they need to validate that that pee came from you. Well, what I'm trying to encourage you to do the same is you need to validate that that driver's license came from that individual and is truly theirs. So the question becomes is, how do you do that? If you are going to bet your store, bet your dealership's reputation on just using the driver's license to verify someone's identity, you really need to do two things. The first thing that you need to do is to be able to, what we talked about a second ago with the fingerprint, you need to be able to compare that information to trusted data sources, right? You can't just trust what's listed on that driver's license to be true and factual, right? So you have to compare that to other data sources. The second thing that you need to do is you need to be able to tie that information directly to that individual, meaning that person who's handing you that driver's license, you need to verify that's them, the identity gap that I talked about earlier. They are what they say they are. Got a question, Mark?
Hey, Jim. So my friend Andrea out in Michigan asked a question. When does the responsibility for a bad loan fall on the dealer versus when does it fall on the lender? Is there something that the dealer can do that would move that responsibility off of them and onto the lender?
Yeah, that's a little too legalese, but I can give you a rough, right? You would have to first check with your lender in your indirect lending contracts, because those provisions are typically in that indirect lending contract, your requirements, your responsibilities for verifying that individual's identity and to what degree they require that. You may want to check again, your all of your indirect lender agreements, not only to see if you're not meeting the requirements that they have for verifying someone's identity, but I'm sure most of you today have also looked into cyber insurance. Each insurance company might call it differently, but to have some type of insurance that covers you if, in fact, you end up in a chargeback situation due to some fraudulent individual. So I can't give you a specific answer. It's typically within those contracts.
Thank you.
So the two things, you got to verify trusted data sources. So let's cover that really quickly. What are trusted data sources? Well, probably the most important one is DMV. Does that information on that driver's license appear in Department of Motor Vehicles? Now, I know that sounds very simple, but I can't tell you how many dealers that are checking that, okay? But that's just one. Now, obviously, if that name on the driver's license does not appear in that database from DMV, you probably got a fraudster, right? But let's go further. Let's check other data sources. Let's check things like public records, utility bills, or other trusted data sources, maybe even a credit bureau. Here's the reason I'm mentioning multiple data sources, and this is where you win. Fraudsters have not figured out how to simultaneously update all these databases with that fraudulent information. Think about it. They don't know how to take that name and put it into the Department of Motor Vehicle in New York, California, or where have you, right? So by looking at multiple trusted data sources in real time, you're probably going to get right away, nope, you're fake, I don't trust you, or you're legitimate, right? Now you may be asking how you're going to do that, and I'm going to get to that in just a second. The second and most important part is you have to tie this information to that person. Or that's like I said earlier with the fingerprint or the P test. I'm going to hand you some P from some other person, right? You have to tie it to that individual. So there is platforms out there. We have one that you have the consumer take a selfie of themselves with their own cell phone, okay? And what happens during that process? If none of you, I'm sure somebody has. I mean, everybody seems to do it. I had to do it for Amazon the other day. So what it's doing is it's doing what we call liveliness detection, and it's also doing biometrics. Liveliness detection is saying, is this a real person, or is this someone trying to take a picture of a picture of a picture? Okay. It's also looking at all the data points on the face, even though some of that changes over time. The person may change the color of their hair. Doesn't matter, because it's looking at the biometrics. Another way to tie it to the person could be the phone. The phone has an IP address, has a MAC address, locations. It could be determined whether or not it was involved in any fraudulent throttling. It could be a burner phone, okay? So there are multiple ways to triangulate that to that person. So if you do both, if you triangulate the data to many trusted data sources and you're confident in how you tie it to that individual, you are very likely to have a good identity. And that's what you need to look for. Now, second part of what I want to chat with you about is that you may have heard this name expressed a couple of different ways: synthetic identities, synthetic credit profiles. Some of them get interchanged and misused, right? But essentially, this is where a fraudster can come into your dealership, present themselves as a real person, get traditional financing from you, and then 3 months later, that's that phone call you get from the bank. You see, if somebody wants to steal a motorcycle through you, right, through traditional financing, of course, that requires a legitimate looking credit profile, right? So I'm going to teach you really quick what they are and how they're created. So I have to do my disclaimer. Nobody legal on the call, but I have to do it anyways. If there's any would-be fraudsters on this call, all right, I'm about ready to teach you how to do this, but you can't take this home and use it, all right? Mark said no, okay? So what is a synthetic credit profile, right? What are they? Well, it's when a fraudster combines fabricated credentials to create an implied identity, but it's not associated with a real person. So let me say that in a different way. A fraudster takes fabricated credentials like a fake social security number, okay? And they tie that together with a fake house and a fake phone number and a fake date of birth and some other fake, right? To create an identity. But here's the key. It's not associated with any real person. And why do I say that's key to understand? I'm sure everybody knows about identity theft. With identity theft, the first thing that anybody who is involved in identity theft will do when their identity is stolen, their wallet's lost, their purse is lost, and somebody's stealing their identity, is they're going to call the police and they're going to call those credit card companies. So that means there's somebody out there screaming, my identity has been stolen. So it's a little easier to catch those. But with synthetic identity, because they take so long to create, which I'm going to teach you right now, they look exactly like real identities. And that makes it very, very hard to detect them. But we're going to show you how. So let me tell you really quick how they're created, okay? So a fraudster comes up with a fake name. For the sake of this conversation, we're going to call them Mary Knight, okay? Sometimes I call them Susan Burke, but I won't on this call because she's our marketing person. She's on a call, and she'll be mad at me. But today we'll call her Mary Knight. So the fraudster adds to Mary Knight an address and then adds that fake social security number that I mentioned. And if you're not aware, fraudsters can get social security numbers from many, many sources. Sometimes they're made up. Sometimes you've heard of the dark web. Sometimes they just steal them from a 5-year-old kid who doesn't even have any credit yet, okay? So they combine a name, an address, a date of birth, and a social security number, all fraudulent. And then here's what they do. They go out and they take out a small loan, maybe a small payday loan, or they'll get a small credit card from, Macy's or JCPenney's, right? Now, they know full well they're not going to get approved. It's not going to happen. But that's not what they want. That's not the end game. What they want and what happens is the credit bureau who receives this loan application, because the bank or whoever's going to do a credit check, the credit bureau is going to say, no, we don't have this file. It doesn't exist. And if you're not aware, they actually create that file. So now this Mary Knight, with all that fake information, fake address, phone number, social security number, now resides in the credit bureau. Equifax, Experian, TransUnion, it's there. Doesn't have any credit, but it's there. Part 2, the fraudster goes to a real person. We're going to call that person Mark, just per chance. They go to a real person by the name of Mark.
I feel like I'm getting picked on today.
Yeah, well, this is what happens when you're the host. I'm sorry. All right, I'll use Steve Green. So Steve Green is a real person. The fraudster goes to Steve Green and says, hey, listen, I'll give you $25,000. And here's what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to add my name, Mary Knight, as an authorized user to one or a couple of your credit cards. Would you do that for me? Steve goes, man, 25 grand? Absolutely. Now, many of you who have kids probably have done this already, right? You add your children on as an authorized user on your credit card, helping them to establish credit, hoping to God they don't go on a shopping spree that you have to pay for, right? But guess what? Now Mary Knight has a little bit of credit. Why? Because she's borrowing the credit from Steve Green, who put him as an authorized user. Now, over a little bit of time, Steve Green has got to keep doing what he does. He's got to keep buying things and paying his bills and keeping his credit perfect. Well, guess what? Mary Knight gets a little bit better. Now, Mary Knight gets to a point where Mary Knight can go out, take out her own loans, buy some things on Amazon. But here's where it's different. Here's where a fraudster actually pays the bills. Why? Why is Mary Knight paying the bills? Because Mary Knight got to get that credit score nice and high. This is important for everybody to remember this on the phone. And I'm going to tell you why later. But they get it nice and high. They don't wait till they get a 590. They want a 790. They want a 820, right? And this is what they do at this stage. They call it the bust out. And this is when they go to your dealership and they go to two others down the road, they might do it in a different state, but they all do it in a short window of time. In a week, they're going in and they're buying a motorcycle from you, and they're going down the street and they're buying a jet ski, and they're going down the street and they're getting a four-wheeler. Okay. And then 3 months later, as I mentioned, the bank's giving you a call and saying, nope, that person was synthetic. You guys didn't verify. I'm going to ask for my money back. And these vehicles, of course, probably in a container ship, headed overseas. And that's how they do it. So this synthetic credit, a synthetic credit profile is not a real person. So there's nobody to go chase after. The lender says you didn't do a good enough job, so I want my money back. Now, you may be asking yourself, I get this question a lot. People say, well, hang on a second. You told me 3 slides ago that the credit bureau created this file. Why didn't they check? Why didn't they check to see if it was fraudulent? Well, interestingly enough, credit bureaus don't spend a lot of time verifying identities because that's not the business they're in. Their business, if you oversimplify it, is to take a social security number and rate the credit worthiness of that social security number. It's a fake social security number, but they're not always checking these things. Okay. Now, why do I say this? Why is this even relevant and important? Because I hear lots of dealers say to me, well, I checked their credit score, I pulled their credit report, and they had an 800 credit score. And they use that to verify someone's identity. And they said, well, it could have been a synthetic identity. But moreover, Mr. Dealer, do you honestly think a fraudster is going to give themselves a 490 credit score? No. So my point is, don't be fooled. Just because a credit score says 820 does not mean that everything is okay from an identity perspective with this customer. You need to do these other things to check, and we'll talk about those in closing. So here's what I call my fraud first strategy. Here's where I actually put words on a screen that you can write down, but I think Mark will share this deck with anybody who wants them. This is a strategy that we have refined with our dealers across the country. And if you're not aware, 700 Credit, we've got over 20,000 dealers who do business with us. And many of those dealers use our identity verification platforms. But along with that, we give them a strategy. And that strategy is roughly this. First and foremost, number one, please, best question I can ask you. Do you want to sell a motorcycle to the driver's license, or do you want to sell the motorcycle to the person? Why do I say that? Because people say, oh, I verified the driver's license. Well, congratulations. You need to verify the person and not just the paperwork. And more importantly, you need to do this early on. I encourage all of our partners to do it. Hey, look, you can do it before they even show up in the dealership, okay? But do it early on. Don't wait till they get the F&I. Don't wait till they say, well, let's get the finance and so forth. Why spend an afternoon with a fraudster, right? It's probably a good book that we could write. Spending an afternoon with a fraudster. Don't do it. Do it early on. Okay. Now you might say there's friction, but I'll explain why and how you can avoid that. Number two, you need to triangulate that information that they're presenting to you to other trusted data sources. Lots of ways that you could do that. And I'm going to tell you a shortcut. But of course, number three, you need to tie that to the physical person, right? We talked about both of those. The best way to accomplish this is leverage technology. Technology can search thousands of databases in a millisecond, literally in a millisecond, right? You can do all that. Technology can do proof of life and verify that it matches this consumer, right? We got AI, we got all these other pieces of technology we can leverage to do that. But most importantly, technology can take away the friction. Because if you had to sit the customer down and go through all this stuff in the F&I in office and what, they're going to go, listen, I'm out of here. This is too much, too hassle, right? With technology, you can do this in a second. So not only are you doing all the checks that you need to do, triangulating it to that individual, but you're reducing the friction and making it happen much quicker. Number 5, 6, and 7, I'm just going to throw all together, okay? I encourage lots of training at your dealership. I'm sure you all have 20 groups. You sit together, you talk about other ways to verify someone's identity. When I was a dealer, we typically try to ask customers questions that would throw them off their game. I know today there are dealers who, I'm not sure about this customer, right? So they go to Google Maps and they do a zoom over the customer's house. And they say, Mr. Customer, what side of the, house is your driveway on, or what color is your mailbox, or whatever, because they don't trust them. So they're looking for other ways. So teach your team, show them what are other red flags that they should be looking for in this process. Yeah. So I'm going to give you a takeaway. Okay. Before I close, people always ask me, what's your bullet list? What's your bullet list? If you're looking at a platform, because there are a few out there, I'm proud to say we brought the first to market, but there's a few out there. This is what you need. The first thing you need is document verification. What's document verification? You need to validate that that driver's license is a real driver's license. There's ways to do that. There's ways to look at the front, OCR that data, and make sure it matches the data that's on the back. Make sure it has the correct watermarks. If you're not familiar, 50 states that we have currently, they all have different regulations. They all have different things, watermarks in this place, on that place. You can't keep up with that. Technology can, but you need a partner who does that. Not all systems do that. You need the liveliness detection, as I mentioned. Why? You got to be able to tie that person to this documents that they're giving you. If you can't, it's useless. Device verification. Many of the platforms, including ours, require the consumer to do all this on their own phone. Why do we do it? We do that because that phone is one more thing that we can triangulate that points to them. Because if it's a burner phone, you might have a problem. You need identity verification. Most people say, didn't we just cover that a second ago, Jim, with document verification? No, we didn't. Verifying the document is one thing. It's just like verifying a pay stub or verifying a bank statement, right? Is that a real pay stub? Identity verification is verifying that Mark is who Mark says he is. Susan is who she says she is. And synthetic ID verification, as I mentioned, that's where I went through the whole credit personas or synthetic credit personas. You need to be able to track that. You need to check against all the different bureaus. Hey, is this a real file? Because if it just opened up last week, it's probably not real, right? You should be looking for DMV verification. I know that sounds like, well, duh, but you believe it or not everybody does DMV verification. A couple other fast points. You really should be thinking about where to store all this information. If you just took a photo of somebody's driver's license on a copy machine, where are you storing it? If you're putting it in a deal jacket in a filing cabinet that's unprotected, guess what? You just got a $52,000 fine from the FTC, right? You want to be looking at digital storage. How do you store this information digitally? Absolutely need to do that. You should be looking at how the consumer can go through this process remotely. Or more importantly, how do you put it into their hands? Because if you put it into their hands, you also reduce friction. And again, you bring their phone into the process. Remotely is nice, not just for out of town people or anything like that. That's not what I mean by that. What I mean by remote is that person may want to, oops, did I lose this?
We're seeing the capabilities slide right now.
Somebody just popped in when I was talking. Okay, so you're still seeing capabilities. Fantastic. So remote doesn't necessarily mean out of state. Remote could mean, hey, I just want you to do this before you get to the dealership, right? Save us a bunch of time, okay? So we also, by the way, I encourage you to look for solutions that can generate this through a QR process, simply because you can do that anywhere. I know salespeople put that QR code on the back of their phone for consumers to start that process, and you're in the middle of the sales lot, yeah? So tell me, can you see the woman in front of the Mercedes-Benz dealership, Mark?
I can.
Okay. Again, I apologize. Somebody popped up in the middle of this and I tried to close the window. I didn't make. So in closing, I just want to say this to everybody, right? I've shared with you, I think, a number of different pitfalls in putting trust in a single data source, i.e. the driver's license, all right? We also obviously discussed the synthetic credit personas. I shared with you, I think, a great strategy that all of you should deploy. What I want to leave with you is simply this. Please stop betting the farm on just the driver's license. Yeah. Don't put your dealerships, everything into just photocopying or just accepting the driver's license. There is so much fraud going on. We couldn't even cover this in one presentation, but there is also document fraud. There are companies out there that literally can make a pay stub that looks like any other pay stub for $10. There are companies out there that can do the same exact thing for bank statements. All that fraudulent processes. I could go on with credit washing. Consumers today, right now, can get consumers. I wish they were consumers. Fraudsters can go and change in a day, can change their credit score from a 490 to an 820 by doing a process they call credit washing. My point is simply this, as I mentioned earlier, don't rely upon one, rely upon multiple ways to verify this person's identity. And I feel extremely confident if you do that, you're not going to get chargebacks. You're going to get good sales. And also, you're also going to send a message out there. And believe it or not, this is true. You're going to send a message out there to the fraud groups or fraud rings or whatever, that you are a store that verifies to a high degree someone's identity. Because if you're not aware of it, they track it. They track all stores. They track your stores. They track car dealerships. They know who they can get away with and who they can't. You're on a list. So with that, I say thank you. Happy to chat, answer more questions. Hope you learned something. If you didn't, you got to stay after class and we'll do it all over again. With that, I'll throw it back to you, Mark.
All right, so I got a long list of questions for you. To start off though, since we got started today, I felt like something was off, and I finally just figured it out a couple of minutes ago. I'm talking to someone named Lawyer who is wearing a shirt that's the same color as a prison uniform. So,
are you just trying to get me back for my little jabs? Fair enough.
Yeah, well, you got me a couple. So, and I have filled out an FBI form, so I nice. Do know I got to go to the CIA headquarters next month, so we had to do all the background check.
Nice.
So Tony asked a question: is the ID verification quiz on the 700 credit report a good form of identity verification?
If you're referring to our ID verification that typically happens when you pull a credit report, the answer is yes, and the answer is no. It depends on what other elements that you purchased in the process, meaning some dealers don't purchase the synthetic fraud as a part of that process. If you're not purchasing synthetic fraud, this is not a sales pitch because it doesn't cost very much. You really should be, because then you're missing out on verifying and checking whether or not they could potentially have a fake credit persona. Those, I would say, are, in my opinion, those are check the box types of things. When the customer comes in, whether it's for a test drive or doing the final, you really should do the things that I mentioned with their driver's license and then going through the gamut of other things that you should be verifying. But are they good? Yes. But you got to be making sure you're buying, the majority of them. If you're not doing an OFAC check, as another example, if you're not doing an OFAC check, which is part of our ID verification process, you're missing out and you're not compliant.
Cool. Thank you. Hopefully that answered your question, Tony. So somebody named Anonymous, odd name. How does 700 credit verify identity today? Are you incorporating new technology today to strengthen your identity verification?
Yeah. So, as I mentioned at the top of the call, we don't like to do sales pitches. We feel education is the best route. But we do have a platform. We call it Quick Scan. Quick Scan, I would feel confidently to tell you, is the leader in the market. We rolled it out a little over a year ago, and there was nobody in the market doing it. Quick Scan is a platform that could be used in store or remote. It's done mobile. The short is, and call one of our sales team, they can give you a full demo, but it's designed to send a text message to the consumer's phone. Consumer does three things. They take a photo of their driver's license front and back. They take a selfie, and that's it. And from there, all the things that I mentioned, document verification, phone verification, identity verification, synthetic fraud, and all those other things that I talked about, we do all of that in real time. And you get back, whether it's on your PC or on your mobile 700 credit app, you get a full report that shows pass, fail, or warning concerns. We don't want to say pass or fail overall because it may be something that's moved and their address changed, so some anomalies. So some things you may want to look at and mitigate yourself. But we call that quick scan. Over 2,000 dealers are using that today. I would encourage you to chat with our salespeople on it. We do have a hardware version that sits on a desk in a dealership where you can insert the driver's license. Me personally, I'd rather see you do the mobile one because it ties in the phone, it ties in some other security features as a part of that. And you're not relying upon one location. Everybody can do it. Everybody can have it on their phone. Yeah. So hopefully that was a quick answer. I didn't want to bore anybody with a sales pitch here.
I don't think anybody's fallen asleep yet. So follow up to that is,
Sure.
Is any service that you offer, or is there any service available in the marketplace where when somebody goes through that and they get a sign off that somebody is who they say they're going to be, that there are some financial protections if we do business with that person?
Oh, that's whoever asked that, that's the $1 million question. If I understand it correctly, we have been engaged with many lenders in the last year, and more so even in the last 3 months, who have said to us, these are lenders from credit unions to small regional banks and even a large OEM, who have looked at our product, love our product, who have literally said to their dealers, use this product. We are working on ways to get those reports that are generated that you, the dealer, sees, to be able to push that report to the lender so that the lender can see it. I have been told by some lenders, I can't say which, but I have been told by some lenders that they are looking into either incentivizing the dealers to use it by saying, if you do this, we will give you safe harbor. So I would talk to your lender. I don't have an answer yet, but I can tell you it seems to be trending that way, that the lenders, if they can get a look at what you're doing to verify the identity, they might be willing to do different things. And again, I can't speak for them, say whether they'll eliminate your recourse or not, but I can certainly say this with confidence. The more in-depth that you do with something like a quick scan, it is highly likely that you won't get a chargeback because you're doing everything that's possible on the market. I can tell you our platform does almost everything that's possible in the market within the category that we're trying to cover. And we're even looking at right now adding technology to go after what they call first-party fraud. Believe it or not, the biggest fraud that's starting right now is where consumers who are real people who are coming in to buy your motorcycles already in mind that they're going to default on you. How do you stop that? So we're trying to figure out how to prevent that from happening too.
So kind of a follow-up question to where you started today talking about the Mercedes G-Wagon. Do you think that in the powersports industry, because our average selling price is kind of on the low end, are we seeing less or more fraudsters? Are they going, well, I've spent all this time building up this credit profile, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to buy something that's worth $100,000 versus a $15,000 motorcycle. So are we less at risk or more?
I wouldn't say you're more or less. I think it really depends on the end game too. So why is Mercedes so high in the list of fraudsters? Well, I read a stat that the 150,000 G-Wagon is going for close to 400,000 in Africa, right? US dollars. But that may be that particular fraudsters. Remember also that they do what we call the bust out. So they're not just doing all this work to get one, they're doing all this work to get multiples. So they may only be stealing one from you, but they're stealing 4 others in the same process. So I don't think that makes you less or more at risk. And the other thing that I would say, we do business in the trailer industry. And they are getting hit extremely hard because those price points are lower but the way they go about stealing them is different. They do it with credit cards. They put a charge in a credit card and then they go back and say, hey, that wasn't me. If you're running a quick scan on somebody, you get to call that lender and say, I know they said that it wasn't me, but here's a picture of them. Here's a picture of their driver's license front and back. And oh, by the way, that was taken with their phone. So I don't know how they can say that they didn't make that charge, because how did I get a picture of them and their driver's license that was taken with their phone? So it's just different. I would say it's different, not necessarily more risk than less risk. I think it's different. And again, keep in mind, it's not just your store that's going to get hit when they do the synthetic credit profile approach.
Having facilitated 20 groups for a decade, I got to hear lots of horror stories about what was going on. But I think one of the things I recognized over the last 5 years was that a lot of dealers have not really paid attention to what the insurance coverage they have on these areas is, and that perfectly fine when your average selling price was $20,000 and you had 30 grand in coverage. But now we've got some dealers who are selling $200,000 boats, and I've had dealers who went to file a claim only to find out that they had $100,000 less coverage than they really needed. So I think it's a good reminder to make sure that you do have coverage for that. Do you make any recommendations on the types of coverage or the amount of coverage that dealers should carry?
Yeah, I stay out of that because that's almost a little bit of a legalese. But I will say this: statistically, right now, one loss is about 10 of your sales. So I would be thinking of it in that vein to say 1 loss, 10 sales. I need to make sure that that aligns with what my insurance is. And I think about the days that I was in car rental. I lost 2 cars a year. That was just what happened in the 80s and 90s, right? And so that's pretty much it. That was my formula to my insurance company. This is my average loss rate. This is where I need to be, right?
You talk quite a bit about different ways to verify identity. What's the cost of some of the 700 credit verification tools? Or is there just a generalization? I know that you don't want to get locked into.
No. I can give you our quick scan pretty cheap actually, and the retention rate is almost 100%. The quick scan is, and confirm with our salespeople, but our quick scan is $100 a month, and there is a scan charge. I think it is like $232 per scan, and that does everything that I mentioned, the biometrics, it even does an OFAC check at the same time. It does the DMV check at the same time. So for those of you who aren't doing OFAC, you should be. And again, there's a perfect example. If you had fraud happen and you didn't check that this person was on the OFAC list, i.e., they're laundering money and all those other things, your bank's going to say, well, you didn't do what you were supposed to do to verify this person. So not only will quick scan do that identity verification, but it's also going to help you on some of the red flag things that you should be. So $100 a month plus, again, I think the cost of the scans are roughly like $230 roughly. Sure.
Just kind of talking from personal experience here, having run a dealership for 20 years at this point in time. Whenever these kind of things happen to us, we always go back and, we kind of call it a forensic audit. We try to dig in and figure out, where did things go wrong? And, over that 20 years have come up with some things that are very consistent. Typically with us, the customer comes in at the end of the day. There's almost always some reason that they're in a rush or a hurry. A lot of times when we've been hit, the customer was driving a Penske or a U-Haul. So are there any other kind of standard? I know we're talking about slightly different things here, but are there any other common red flags that you see in the industry that dealers should be aware of?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. Unfortunately, we couldn't even cover them on 2 calls. One of the things that and you just said it, I have always encouraged dealers is, and I know this doesn't play well with a lot of people, first is slow down. Because if they want to go fast, well, that's your first red flag. But you have to realize that the biggest fraud that you're faced right now is the document fraud. So yes, you need to verify that person's identity, just like we talked about. but it shouldn't stop there. So document fraud is considered right now one of the highest. So what do I mean by that? Fake pay stubs, fake, bank statements, fake employment. There's, I think the last study I read that somebody found there was something like 143
Red flags.
fake businesses out there, fake businesses that the fraudsters use on their applications, right? There was some company, police found or whatever, over 200 fake car dealer websites out there that were tricking people. But what I'd be looking for is the documents, and I wouldn't rely on looking at it and saying, "Oh yeah, that looks official." You need to call that employer. You need to call that bank if you have concerns. There is technology we don't have. We don't carry that because it's kind of outside of our swim lane. We tend to stay closer to the credit, but there are companies out there that will do the verifying of the now. Let me restate one thing. We do verify income. We have an income verification platform that you should also use. Don't rely on a pay stub. Our income verification is coming right from the employer, right? But there are other ones that will verify, is this a real bank statement? Consumers can log in and verify it. So documents, I guess, is what I'm really trying to say, is that's the other thing that you really should be looking at.
Got time for a couple more questions. I will say one thing, and something that I was made aware of last week. I'm not going to say where this dealer is, but got a friend of mine in the middle of the country that somebody has created a fake website that is almost a mirror image of theirs, using a domain name in their town, scraping a lot of content from their website, and really pushing consumers to wire transfer money in to pay for vehicles, and then telling customers that they're, for whatever reason, the showroom is closed down. Please wire us the money. And then in a couple of days, actually sending these customers down to my buddy's store to go pick them up. And they show up and they're like, sorry, we didn't have anything to do with that. So all kinds of weird stuff going on right now.
Huge fraud. And I'll tell you that I won't tell you how I did it, but I did it in less than 1 hour. I had AI generate me 5 exact duplicate websites of 4 car dealers here in Atlanta. It's that easy. It is that easy.
We also, years ago, we quit taking a cashier's check. So now we've got a standard form. We created an account that's in out or in only. And, if a customer wants to pay with a cashier's check, they've got the money. So we just give them the wire transfer instructions, and, our percentage of those customers go away, and, a big percentage of them, the money shows up in the bank account. So kind of eliminate that. But question from Anonymous, what states do you communicate with to verify licenses? I think I actually know the answer to this, but I'll leave it to you.
I feel like Anonymous is Ken Hill, my boss, testing me. So if that's you, Ken, I hope I pass the test. We are in 48 states. We have 2 states left to go. We just got Pennsylvania. I think the last 2 left are California, Hawaii, I think. But keep in mind, that is just for the DMV portion of the check. All other things still exist. So don't think that if you're in California, you shouldn't or couldn't use this platform. You absolutely can. It's just that one element, that one data check to a DMV database. They don't open it up yet because they're privacy rules and all those. But you're still verifying the document. You're still doing the synthetic fraud checks. You're still cross-referencing it. That's probably the other reason, not probably, it is the other reason why we also check a multitude of other fraud and non-fraud databases, because again, we're trying to triangulate that data off of as many data sources as we can.
So 2 other quick, the other thing I was going to say on that though, and just when we were rambling, when we started, we talked about this, but I think one of the things everyone should know about driver's licenses is that a lot of them start out as a real license. So if the only thing you're checking is the number and the name against a database, a lot of times that information is correct. It's the image and some of the other content that's being replaced on them. So just because you could call the DMV and say, hey, I've got this driver's license with this name, this number on it, doesn't mean that it's going to turn out to be fake.
Exactly. And again, that goes back to it just looking convincing. It doesn't have to be 100% accurate, right?
So the other two questions, you had talked about training earlier on. What kind of training do you recommend? Is it anything that you offer?
I would always encourage you to call our sales team. They can do some training, especially on our platform, QuickScan. We don't have a specific fraud training. We tend to do these webinars from an educational standpoint. I am the fraud geek, as it were. You can feel free to call me anytime you want. And we've talked about developing some of these. We haven't got there yet, though.
Gotcha. And the last one, DocuSign versus wet signatures. Any difference between the two, and what is really better considered valid? Is a DocuSign now pretty much universally accepted?
Yeah, I mean, this is just an opinion now. I think DocuSign is definitely universally accepted for sure. Obviously, when something's paper, you can easily write over. So you mentioned bank checks earlier. And they could just literally put a little bit of, a chemical on it, erase the amount, and next thing you know, you got a signed check with a different value to it, so I don't know if that's going to solve your fraud problem, though.
Anonymous slipped one more in. We've had a lot of customers wanting to purchase a whole unit on a credit card lately. What is the limit you suggest we allow on a credit card to combat fraud or chargebacks?
Yeah, listen, I'm not the person to ask what that should be. I don't know if there's even a statistic on that. But I will tell you some things that I've gleaned from speaking to the trailer business, because those folks accept a lot of credit cards for that. What I would first and foremost say, and this is not a pitch from us, but using QuickScan, is certainly going to help you validate that person's identity, give you that level of confidence that, this is who they say they are, that is really their credit card, et cetera, et cetera. You obviously have to balance your desire to, make a deal to your risk. I spoke with a gentleman who was the detective for the LAPD, and his response to that almost same question really boiled down to, what is your risk tolerance? Because that's really what it boils down to. So if you want to accept $20,000 on a credit card, then you need to feel confident that you've done one of two things. You've either fully validated that individual and you're confident that they are who they say they are, or you're comfortable with losing $20,000. I would also caution in this day and age, again, one of the challenges we're seeing is that first party fraud. So are these people, about ready to just go, screw it, I'm going to lose my credit? Is there any way to figure that out right now? That's kind of tough. So again, I come back to what the guy from LAPDA said, or LAPD said, what's your tolerance level? Yeah. Especially
All right.
identity.
I think we worked through everything. So, Mr. Lawyer, I really do appreciate you and your team taking the time to work with us to present this webinar to everyone who attended today. I hope that everyone who attended is an NPDA member, but if you're not, got the just the cost to join and be a member of the organization are up on the screen. So $400 a year. We've got about 45 partners, like 700 credit, and we have asked all of them to offer some benefit or some reason for them to attract members to the NPDA. So if you look on our website, you can see who all the partners are, as well as what benefits they are offering to our members. So if you're not a member, please join up. And with that, I think we will call it a day, unless you have anything else to add, Mr. Lawyer.
No, I just want to say thank you to all our customers, because I heard some questions that clearly pointed out you are our customers. And those of you who are not, we certainly welcome you. Come join the team. And at bare minimum, nobody's going to pressure you. I can tell you that. Just give them a call. I'm going to give them a quick scan demo for you. I think you'll be impressed at how you can reduce, listen, it takes a lot to run a dealership. I was a dealer for 20 years, and, losing 2 vehicles to me wasn't easy. I wouldn't want to see you guys losing any bikes. So it doesn't hurt you just to listen to see what they got, see how I can help you store. And then again, you've got my information. Happy to answer any other questions, but truly, thank you, everybody. Appreciate the time.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Y'all have a great afternoon. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.